has started.
All right, so Gina, I would like to call the meeting to order, please. Gina, roll call.
Director Zakbari,
Present.
Gunther,
Present.
Sethi,
Here.
Weed,
On the phone. Here.
and Huang.
Here. And General Manager, I believe you have a little blurb to read about what meeting?
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, this is the district's first ever virtual board meeting. And this is occurring due to the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the governor's executive orders, which suspend portions of the Brown Act. And this meeting will be conducted by teleconference webinar only. And members of the public may not attend this meeting physically in person. However, members of the public may participate in this meeting by calling in, and we listed 3 numbers on the agenda, and that's in case that there's more interest than what the phone lines can handle individually. And there is a code to enter the meeting, or members of the public may be able to participate in the meeting by clicking on the webinar URL, which is in Zoom. So that explains why we were here, why we are all here virtually.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shaver. Next is Pledge of Allegiance. Director Akbari, would you please lead us in a salute to the flag, please?
I'd be happy to. Are we going to be pulling up a flag by any chance?
No, we're not. That's why I kind of changed it to Pledge of Allegiance rather than salute to the flag.
Sure. Okay.
All right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next is public comment on matters on this notice of special meeting. If any member of the public wish to speak to the board on matters on this special meeting, can you please use the raise hand button and let the district secretary know that you wish to make a comment to the board at this point, please. Thank you. All right, I am going to say no one raised their hand. Then let's move on to closed session. General Manager, would you like to read us into the closed session, please?
Yes, pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957, it's regarding a threat to public services or facilities, consultation with District Counsel and Security Operations Manager.
All right, with that, we will adjourn to closed session. And District Secretary, please mute all the mic. Thank you.
And this is at 4:09.
We're good to go.
All right, so since this is a new format for us, I just want to double check that all the directors are back online. I know I heard Director Akbari.
Seth's here.
Jim Gunther's on.
Weed is on.
All right, so we're all back. Then with that, let's go back to the open session. So in the closed session, item 4.1, pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957, threat to public service or facilities, consultation with District Counsel and Security Operations Manager. The board received a report from District Counsel and Security Operations Manager, and no actions were taken. With that, I was just told that potentially we, due to our still learning how to use a webinar, we might have inadvertently cut off some of our public members who wish to address the board. So at this point in time, I wish to open the public comment period. So if there are any members of the public that wish to address the board on matters of this special notice, on the matters discussed at this special meeting, please speak up now. All right. District Secretary, we are sure we unmuted everybody, correct?
Correct.
All right, then I am going to assume we have no members of the public that wish to address the board. Then let's go to item 5.1, update on COVID-19 pandemic. General Manager?
Thank you, Madam President. I think I'm going to receive control of the slide presentation soon, hopefully. And the presentation is attached to this meeting on the district's website. So if there are any members of the public on the phone, they do have access to the presentation materials on the district's website. Okay, so it looks like I can control things now. Thank you, District Secretary. So this is intended to give the board a general overall update on the COVID-19 pandemic and what the district is doing to ensure that we maintain our services. And the agenda is an overview of really what's going on, stated district objectives, the actions that we have taken already, a little bit about the district's current leave policies, and this pertains to potentially providing the general manager with additional flexibility and authority regarding these policies to address issues associated with the pandemic, and then talk about the district's current operational status and then next steps. So in terms of COVID-19, an overview, this is all widely known information. Just wanted to mention a few things, and that is from the Governor Newsom's office in Sacramento. It's pretty much daily now that executive orders are being issued on a whole number of issues associated with the COVID-19 pandemic. In addition, multiple counties have issued stay-at-home orders, as well as the governor himself as well. And consistent with these orders, ACWD has maintained all of its services. The orders include exceptions for essential services and essential infrastructure workers. And I'm not 100% sure why Governor Newsom did this, but he did he did explicitly include construction as essential infrastructure, and all workers associated with construction are essential infrastructure workers. So it's pretty obvious that the intent of the state is that construction should continue, maybe because it's the amount of jobs that it provides. There's no distinction between what types of construction, whether it's for water utilities or a commercial shopping center. There's no distinction there. The cases continue to rise. I understand that we are over 3,000 in California right now of positive cases, and Bay Area hospitals are on alert for a surge as early as this weekend. Bay Area schools are closed at least until May 1st and potentially longer. And there remain limitations on COVID-19 testing capabilities and supplies of certain equipment and materials. For example, it's very difficult right now to procure sanitary wipes, hand gel. Our procurement group has been working very hard, and they've performed some materials, some magic to procure these materials, but supplies are still very limited. The district does have N95 masks as well that we're using, and we're basically making sure that all these materials are used appropriately and wisely. And they are very valuable now. So they are all locked up and being distributed as needed. Moving on, let's see if it moves here. So in terms of the district's overall objectives, our intent is to comply with all health guidelines from the federal government and state and county. And most of those guidelines are coming out of the CDC and Alameda County Health Department. We're also complying with state and county mandates. Probably the most significant ones that impact ACWD directly so far were Executive Order N-25-20, and that is one of the reasons why we are having this virtual board meeting this evening, and the governor's stay-at-home order, which was issued on March 19th. And also identified construction, as I mentioned, as an essential activity. So from my perspective, ACWD's two primary goals are to keep employees as safe as possible, as well as maximizing communications to employees, making sure they understand what's going on and minimizing anxiety to the extent that we can do so, as well as continuing and to provide all the services while prioritizing the most critical services in the event that our capabilities of performing those services get limited because of resource issues. In terms of specific actions, we activated our EOC on March 12th. So this is basically the 2-week anniversary of operating in emergency conditions. We're currently in what we call COVID-19 response level 3, and we are utilizing incident command system protocols. We are tracking COVID-19 related costs as well. Other actions that we are taking is trying to comply with all social distancing recommendations. We are maximizing teleworking. We're now up to 77 employees that are now working from home. That number is likely to continue increasing, but not radically. A lot of our employees have job classifications that really aren't appropriate to work from home, like utility workers or water treatment plant operators. We're also maximizing what I'm calling a micro team approach. So for larger groups, we're separating them into smaller units. And in some cases, we're staggering start times. And this is to minimize sort of the interaction of the individuals in these groups. So if we do have somebody that gets sick or gets a positive test, then hopefully the impacts to the broader group are minimized. We're repurposing pool vehicles. So in many instances, some of our employees share vehicles to go out to work sites and things like that. So we've brought in the pool vehicles that might normally be used for other purposes and making them available for those employees so that they can take different vehicles to the work site. And we're encouraging employees that otherwise need to go out, but not on a routine basis, to just use their personal vehicles and then expense the miles. We're also changing how some employee work groups report to work so that they don't all convene at the same location. So in some cases, that's resulted in work from truck as opposed to work from home for, say, for example, our construction inspectors, or report to truck. when we have employees, instead of necessarily coming into the building in the morning or in the evening, just get their work assignments at their truck. We recently began implementing signs for our employees to use when they're out at construction sites in the field. The signs ask members of the public to stay away at least 6 feet, and they have graphics on them, so in case there's a language barrier, it's still very clear that members of the public should stay away from our employees and provide those social distances. In terms of hygiene, we've increased routine cleaning in many areas of our organization, and we do have our cleaners on standby for available deep cleaning should something like a positive test or some district employee gets infected, comes to pass. And again, we're doing our best, given the limitations of supplies, to provide sanitary wipes, hand gels, and we're even making our own cleaner sanitizer spray based on raw materials that we're able to obtain because actually getting the disinfectant sprays is very difficult right now. One area that I'm particularly proud about is the amount of communications that we've been doing, both internally and externally. I mentioned previously, keeping employees informed has been a very high priority because the landscape has been changing so rapidly, as well as externally. Specifically, I'd like to point out that we've really utilized Nextdoor in this particular case, and we've also used our RAN system so we can send out rapid area notifications to people that have registered. And we've also sent out emails to customers that we have their email addresses to let them know critical information, for example, that their water supply is safe. And we've gotten some pretty good impact from that kind of communications. In terms of other actions, we are preparing to divert from normal operations if needed. Again, we're continuing our construction work. One interesting thing that has come up is requests from contractors that are actually working on our CIP projects for us to provide them a letter. So in case they are stopped by a public official, they have some evidence with them that they are working on critical infrastructure work. So we've started doing that. In terms of testing, in my view, this is the game changer. And I'm really hoping that the federal government and state government and local governments can step up testing availability, because it could just take out a lot of uncertainty and allow perhaps employees to not have to be quarantined for extended periods of time and minimize our operations. So we're on call. We're on the call with the Alameda County Department of Health Services basically every day, side by side with first responders, for example, police and fire, trying to explain the importance of our critical functions. You don't have water at a fire hydrant if it's a problem for the fire department as well. And I think we've made some headway right now. However, the emphasis has been on first responders, police and fire, because of the number of people that they come into close contact with. But you probably have heard that there's been a private test center stood up in Hayward. It's still getting going. Currently, they're up to about 250 tests per day. And my understanding is that there's additional test centers in development, and the district is looking for opportunities perhaps to maybe even invest in one of these test centers if we could get priority testing out of the arrangement. So I may be back in discussion with the board about that issue, or we may just do it depending on the cost and what's involved. And then I would report back to the board if we were, because I think that would be a big win for us. In terms of customer service, we've closed the lobby to the general public, but it doesn't seem to be resulting in much issues. We haven't really received any complaints about that. I think the public understands, and certainly they can still drop off bills. And probably also because we've suspended late fees, collections, and shutoffs to help customers deal with the crisis. It just reduces the need for visitors to the building as well. In terms of information technology, our staff has done an amazing job to equip, all of a sudden going from very few to 77 teleworkers in a matter of days. So all those employees are now hooked up to the network through a VPN setup. And there have been some issues with capacity, but our IT staff have addressed them rapidly, and employees are working, I think, their productivity at home has been pretty good. We've also increased the number of teleconference lines that we have available, and we've added Zoom to help ourselves do telemeetings as well. Many workflows have been modified, and we really don't have any real face-to-face meetings any longer. It's all basically being done virtually. In terms of impacts to employees, certainly employees are concerned about potentially the impact of either getting sick or being quarantined or having a family member experience the same. One good piece of news is the federal government recently adopted the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, and it has certain elements in it that could help ACWD employees. And it would basically, what we would be doing is looking to sort of piggyback on top of this to leverage these additional federal mandates to be more appropriate for life in the Bay Area and for what the mission of the Alameda County Water District is doing. Generally, we require employees to utilize existing accruals, but I think what we're looking at as staff is to allow for more flexibility on how those accruals are used. And we have I think some pretty good ideas in terms of how to do that so that employees can manage the issues that many of them will be facing. The idea is to eliminate as much as we can hardship situations in which employees are really basically losing, their pay. That is difficult for just about anybody. The leave donation program that the district already has in place can be expanded to include COVID-19 related issues, and we're looking at that as well as very minimal use of paid administrative leave for issues that we can't foresee, but it might be in the district's best overall interest from time to time to have an employee be sent home, even though that employee may be willing to work. Current operational status is, I'm happy to report, we're not experiencing any major issues currently. Water demand remains seasonally low. And our water treatment plant number 2 has been offline for its annual maintenance. It's scheduled to be restarted on April 1st. Water treatment plant number 2 is the most labor intensive production facility that we have. And in the event that COVID-19 pandemic strikes employees in a big way at ACWD, that might be the facility that is the most vulnerable as opposed to staffing limitations. So there's a number of things we're doing to try to minimize the likelihood of that. We have no current issues with any major supply chains besides the ones that I previously indicated. However, we do have 2 employees that are currently quarantined for real COVID-19 related issues. In fact, one employee has a situation where he's living with somebody who is struggling with the disease. In terms of next step, We are going to continue our virtual EOC meetings. Currently, they're happening daily. It's possible that we will adjust that frequency as appropriate. We will address employee leave policies to provide additional flexibility for the district while making sure that we're still acting in the best interest of our ratepayers. We continue monitoring our workforce health and effectiveness as best as we can. Additional testing capabilities would really help in that regard. And I have been in personal communication with other associations that we belong to make sure that we're sharing best practices, lessons learned, and just kind of comparing notes with all of the major water agencies in the state. We're coordinating with the cities and the Department of Health, especially as part of the whole incident command system. My plan is to continue regular updates to the board. I've been doing that generally by email and make more updates during board meetings and keep our increased communication with employees as well as involving the unions as appropriate. So just wanted to remind the board that our next meeting is Tuesday, April 14th, which doesn't sound like a long time from now. And it is a Tuesday. Remember, this is the one meeting that we do each year on a Tuesday. But the story can change a lot between now and then. And I will keep you updated. And if necessary, I would propose a special board meeting. But right now, there's no obvious reason to do that. So with that, I'm ready to respond to any questions, and plus we have a number of district staff on the line too who are available.
Okay, so thank you, General Manager. With that, do I have any questions from the board members? Hearing none, do I have any questions from a member of the public on the General Manager's presentation? If you do, please feel free to speak up. Okay, I will say I am surprised that I did not hear any questions. With that, then shall we move on to item 5.2, General Manager?
Yes, I am waiting for the district secretary to once again take control of the presentation materials. In the meantime, maybe I will just read the item. So item 5.2 pertains to the consideration of a declaration of a local emergency related to the COVID-19 pandemic. And the district general manager requests that the board of directors consider a resolution proclaiming the existence of a local emergency consistent with the state of emergencies declared by Alameda County and the state of California. The resolution would grant authority to the general manager to take necessary actions, including authorization to suspend and/or modify administrative procedures, personnel rules and policies, and procurement policies, authorize expanded paid administrative and sick leave, authorize an expanded leave donation program bank, and to take other necessary actions to protect district employees and the public and to assure water supply during the declared national, state, and local emergencies resulting from the COVID-19 virus pandemic. All actions taken under the extended authority will comply with federal, state, and local laws and regulations. Proclaiming a local emergency could provide the district with opportunities for additional state and federal funding assistance. The general manager will report any financial impacts regularly to the board. And I just should say that we did include a resolution in the board packet for the board's consideration, but subsequently, Director Weed proposed an alternative approach, and there was a second resolution drafted by council, which is also posted on the district's website. And I believe that all the directors have received that resolution, and And that's our presentation. We really kind of need direction from the board on which resolution they prefer, if any. And then we're asking the board to consider adopting that particular resolution, the one that they choose.
This is Director Weed. I'd like to make a motion to adopt the amended resolution, noting that the County Water District Act only permits the declaration by a county water agency of a water supply emergency. The amended resolution, I think, is in keeping with the letter of the law and also the intent of the law, that medical emergencies are within the purview of public health officers, and that we recognize the direction and order that we receive from the various public health officials, and that we are taking the same actions as we would otherwise pursuant to that order. So my motion is to approve the amended resolution.
John, Paul Sethi, I finally understand the logic of what you were presenting in the alternative resolution. So I would gladly second it. I didn't quite understand the nuance there, and I apologize.
So thank you, Director Wee and Director Sethi. I will go on to ask if the directors have any questions or comments. If not, does any member of the public have questions or comments for the board? All right, hearing none, I do have a comment before we vote. I would like to speak on behalf of the board. ACWD employees and their families are very important to us. They are what makes it possible for ACWD to fulfill our mission so competently. This resolution reflects our commitment to our employees and their families. It leverages recent resolution, but modify it to reflect the reality of living in the Bay Area and provides flexibility in our leave program to address the needs of our employees. Speaking for myself, I can stress the importance of our employees and their families. They really are what makes ACWD. So with that, I would say, do we have a motion and a second? District Secretary, roll call, please. Or do I have a comment from the directors?
Directors Akbari,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Sethi,
Aye.
Weed,
Aye.
and Huang.
Aye. So with that, the next item is General Manager's report.
Yeah, thank you, President Wong. I just wanted to point out that in terms of the resolution that the board just adopted, that it is temporary, it's only for a limited time, and it's only due to the COVID-19 pandemic and declared emergency. So staff will manage resources and staff with that in mind. And I appreciate that you are putting your trust in staff and your general manager, and we will do our best to not let you down.
Thank you.
Now, regarding general manager's reports, I have no additional items unless there are any from members of executive staff.
All right, hearing none, I am assuming silence equal, there are no additional reports, right?
I think that's probably a pretty fair assumption.
Okay, director's comments and or agenda item requests.
John Weed. Roma Emanuel once noted that a crisis is too remarkable a thing to let go to waste. But hopefully in this experience, we will learn and recognize the advantages of developing a rate structure which is rational, responsible, and far more able to take care of the needs of the economically disadvantaged by properly balancing our fixed cost to our fixed revenues and variable cost to variable revenues and the method of billing through the ability to bill the fixed costs through a property tax. So there are some major changes that hopefully we can learn from this experience and to implement them in our policies and practices. Thank you. It's John Weed.
Thank you, Director Weed. Director Sethi?
None.
Director Gunther? Am
No
I?
comments. I'm good.
Thank you. Director Akbari?
No additional comments. Thank you.
Okay, I just have a very quick note. I want to thank staff. I noticed we have definitely stepped up on our electronic outreach. That's definitely recognized and appreciated. With that, I think we could adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, President Juan. We are adjourning at 6:34.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you for putting up with our IT issues.
You guys did great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.